Your brain cannot simulate your own death, not because it lacks imagination, because it is physically incapable of it. Every time you try to picture yourself not existing, your brain inserts itself as a survivor, watching from the outside, still present, still observing. The thing you're most certain will happen to you is the one thing your mind refuses to make real. To understand why, you have to understand how your brain processes information about the future. Your brain is a prediction machine. That is its primary function. Not to experience the present moment, to anticipate what comes next. Every second of every day, your brain is running simulations. What will happen if I take this route? What will that person say if I send this message? What will my life look like in 5 years? It runs these simulations automatically, constantly, and almost entirely without your awareness. But there is one simulation it cannot run cleanly. In 2019, researchers at Bar-Ilan University in Israel ran a study using a technique called surprise-based learning. They showed participants a series of images, some neutral, some associated with death, while scanning their brains. What they found was unexpected. When the brain encountered information suggesting that death applied to the self, it did something remarkable. It predicted the information would not be relevant. It flagged the concept of personal death the same way it flags information about other people, as something that happens, just not to you. The researchers called this the mortality salience bias. Your brain does not deny that death exists. It simply and quietly removes you from the category of things it applies to, every time, automatically, without asking your permission. This is not a bug. It is one of the most important features your brain has ever developed. Think about what it would mean to fully, completely, viscerally understand that you are going to die, not as an abstract fact, not as something that will happen someday in a vague future, but with the same clarity and immediacy as understanding that you're hungry right now, or that your hand is touching something hot right now. If your brain ran that simulation at full resolution, at full emotional intensity, every morning when you woke up, you would not be able to function. The psychological weight of genuine, unfiltered mortality awareness would be paralyzing, so your brain protects you, constantly. It lets you know that death exists. It lets you understand that it will happen eventually, but it never quite lets you feel it as real, as yours, as now. Psychologists call the management of this awareness terror management theory. The idea, first proposed by cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker in his 1973 book, The Denial of Death, is that virtually every human cultural institution is a response to this problem. Religion, art, legacy, fame, having children, building things that outlast you, writing things down. All of it, Becker argued, is a species-wide project to construct symbolic immortality, to find ways of mattering that extend beyond the physical end of the body. Becker's book won the Pulitzer Prize 2 months after he died of cancer. He never knew. The research that followed his work has been striking. In study after study, when researchers make people think about their own death, through questions, images, or reminders, something predictable happens. People become more defensive of their cultural worldview, more hostile to people who are different from them, more generous to people who are similar, more likely to spend money on status symbols, more likely to seek recognition, more likely to contribute to things that feel permanent. The awareness of death, even when unconscious, shapes almost every significant decision you make. And here is the part most people never hear. The system that protects you from the full weight of your own mortality also protects you from something else, from giving up, from hopelessness, from the paralysis that would come from truly internalizing the randomness and fragility of being alive. Every time you make a plan, set a goal, invest in a relationship, build something, plant something, write something, you're operating on an implicit assumption that you will be there to see it matter. Your brain generates that assumption automatically. It cannot do otherwise. This is why humans are the only species that builds for centuries. The only species that plants trees under whose shade they will never sit. The only species that writes letters to people who have not been born yet. Every one of those acts requires a mind that cannot fully simulate its own absence. The denial of death is not a weakness. It is the engine of everything. But it comes with a cost, because the same system that keeps you functional also keeps you slightly unaware, slightly surprised every time when death arrives for someone close to you, slightly unprepared every time for the reality that the people you love will not always be here, slightly certain, despite all evidence, that you specifically will be the exception. You know, intellectually, that you will die. Every person who has ever lived has known this, and almost every one of them, somewhere in the architecture of their daily assumptions, has lived as if they wouldn't. Right now, your brain is doing it. Not because you are irrational, not because you're in denial, because you're running the same system every human who has ever built anything, loved anyone, or hoped for anything has ever run. The system that makes it possible to care about a future you will not always be part of. The system that looks at a blank page, or an empty field, or a new morning, and decides, without being asked, that it is worth beginning. Your brain cannot picture your own death. And because it can't, you keep going. That is not a flaw. That is the whole point.